You can see that a little bit
with the
in here.
calling the meeting to order at
Okay.
11:08 here on August 2nd, 2022. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. To roll call, we have Mr. Commissioner Adams here, Commissioner Maryboy's on the line, on the phone, and myself. We do have a quorum. So with that, invocation,
Okay, just let me know.
anyone?
I'll have to clear court stuff.
Mr. Adams?
Yep. I'm the official prayer for the commission. Our dear Father in heaven, as we come before thee as commissioners and staff for San Juan County, as well as our residents who are here today, we ask thee to bless this meeting, that we will be able to conduct our business in a proper manner, and that we'll be able to accomplish the things that we need to that are before us on the agenda. We're grateful for this wonderful country we live in. We ask you to bless the President of the United States and those who work with him, that they will do whatever they need to keep our country free. We ask you to bless the leaders of this state, our governor and other officials, state officials, that they will always be mindful of San Juan County, even though we're a long ways away from Salt Lake, that we will be in their thoughts when they distribute funds and help the people of San Juan County. We ask you to bless our county staff and all of our employees, that they will be safe in the workplace, especially those who work in dangerous conditions such as law enforcement and others. We ask you to be with them and protect them. We ask you to be with the people of Ukraine, that they will be able to deal with the tragedies that are happening in that country. We're grateful for all of the people who serve in the military and those who are placed in harm's way throughout the nation and throughout the world. We're grateful for all of the blessings that we have, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
With that, we go next to the agenda.
Okay,
Mr.
on the agenda
Tom?
today, under the consent agenda item, you have the approval of the July 19th, 2020 Board of Commission meeting minutes. You have the approval of the July 15th through July 28th, 2022 check registers. Item number 3 is ratification of a letter of support to apply for the EDA Equity Investment Grant requested by Rural Community Assistance Corporation. You have an appointment of Karen Whipple to the County Economic Development Board. Then item 5, approval of the Department of Environmental Quality, San Juan County Health Department letter, work plan and contract for fiscal year 2023. Item 6, approval of the 2022 Social Services Block Grant Renewal Contract for $58,127. Item 7, approval of the Memorandum of Agreement for 2023 Beehive Library Consortium. Item number 8, ratification of the fiscal year 2022 Beer Tax Funds Annual Report Allocation. And then item number 9 is the approval of a renewal contract with Cabal Group for the Public Safety Building Control System for $14,900 a year until February of 2023. Under our public hearing, we have 2 public hearings for today. The first one is public hearing for consideration and approval of the management plan amendment public hearing, and that will be presented by Nick. Then we need to have a public hearing for a resolution pursuant to section 17-36-26 UCA 1953 as amended, approving the additional budget appropriation requests and or mid-year adjustments funded by new revenues, grant funding, and or monies unspent in prior year funds. That initial presentation will be Lyman, and I'll take care of that as well. Under business action items, item number 12, consideration and approval of San Juan County Mud Springs Trail by Elaine, our Economic Development and Visitor Services Director. Item 13, consideration and approval of principal forgiveness agreement for the Lasalle feasibility study for $60,000 from the Drinking Water Board, State Revolving Fund, State of Utah Department of Environmental Quality. I'll present on that one, as well as the consideration and approval of the contract agreement with Bloomquist Health Solutions for high engagement mental health solutions. We also have a need to go into Board of Equalizations for item number 15, which is consideration and approval of corrected property value adjustments from August 2nd up until August 2nd, 2022. Under recognition, presentations, and informational items, we've kind of saved this for the last instead of up front where it typically is. Item 16 is recognition of Gary Sotomayer for 35 years of service on the San Juan County Public Health Board. So he should be here for that award, and we have a plaque here for that. Item number 17 is a resolution of the San Juan County Board of Commissioners expressing our continued recognition and appreciation for our public health employees and their efforts throughout this pandemic. And then you have commission reports. That today, Commissioner, is your agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Maryboy,
Is this to approve the agenda?
Correct.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
any question or comment or deletion, addition to the proposed agenda? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay? 0. You have 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries. Now we going into public comment.
Okay, just
Any sign up for?
let's see. I don't know if we have anybody signed up for. No. Nothing there. Anyone online wishing to just make a public comment? This is prior to the public hearings. If so, go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself. There's nobody in the audience wishing to make a public comment at this time.
Okay. Going down to consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beardsley. Any questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay? 0. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
I'll make a motion, we go into public hearing to consider the approval of a management plan amendment by Public Lands Coordinator.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Maryboy to enter public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. 3 in favor. Opposed, nay? 0. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. We are now in public hearing. Mr. Nick Sandberg.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I'll just give a short review of why we're having this public hearing, what this whole amendment process is about. In 2021, the Utah legislature mandated that the state resource management plan as well as county resource management plans be amended on certain topics. And those topics included public lands access, renewable energy, and critical minerals, and as well as critical minerals and rare earth elements, and to add two new items to the plans, one being utility corridors and the other pipelines and infrastructure. Now, the county staff, with the assistance of the Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission and the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office, prepared draft narratives for these amended topics. And these drafts have been on the county website for public review and comment. And the Planning Commission held a public hearing on these amendments on July the 14th. And after hearing the public comments, the commission approved those proposed amendments and basically forwarded those to the commission for action. And that action now includes a public hearing on these amended topics. So I'm not sure what else you might need before we go into the public comments on this.
Any question? Are those just the two-item pipeline and what's the other?
5. It's actually 5. The 2 were new and 3 were to amend existing parts of the resource management plans.
That's overall, not specific to one location?
Overall, yes. I don't believe, and trying to think of any specific locations that would be specified in the plan. I can't recall of anything like that. In other words, for the pipelines and infrastructure or the utility corridors, none would be proposed. This is basically to support the federal agencies, BLM and Forest Service, in their approval of, excuse me, any needed utility corridors or pipelines and other infrastructure. But the plan, the county plan itself, would not propose any.
There's no specific plans at this time for public land use anywhere.
Yes, the original resource management plan was completed and approved in 2017, and that gives broad guidance on, I think there were 27 or 28 original topics, and now the legislature has added 2 more to that. So on those 27 or 28 original topics, whether that was wildlife habitat, livestock grazing, land access, minerals, energy, those are already in place. And those were not modified except for those 3 that I mentioned: public land access, renewable energy, which would include a section on critical minerals.
And rare earth.
Say again?
Critical minerals and rare earth.
Yes.
Yep.
And in San Juan County, from what I've read, as a result or because of the geography in the county, it's unlikely that there would be any rare earth elements in the county. But we do have 4 critical minerals in the county, and they are lithium, vanadium, manganese, and cobalt. And some of those are mined in the county or have been or could be. And those critical minerals are those that are essential for national security as well as local and national economies. They may be involved in a supply chain that could be disrupted that would have effects on national security and national economies. So that's why I think there's 30 some odd elements listed as critical minerals, and San Juan County has 4.
The current sites that are being mined, where are they located?
Current sites that are being mined for the critical minerals,
Critical minerals and lithium.
I don't know about lithium, manganese, or cobalt. Vanadium was historically mined in association with uranium mining. So these 4 critical minerals may not be widespread across the county. There may be specific locations, and I don't have those locations.
Okay.
I will say that over the past few years, because of lithium's use in batteries used in rechargeable, whether vehicles or your iPhones or whatever it may be, lithium is a key component in those batteries. So there's been some increased interest in extracting lithium in the United States, because I believe most of that comes from, here again, I've read it and I've forgotten it, whether that was China or Canada or somewhere outside the United States. And so the United States would like to mine more lithium where it's feasible. In San Juan County, I know there's some lithium deposits in the Lisbon Valley area where there's been other mining for uranium, vanadium, and as well as oil and gas drilling.
Any question?
We need to let the public weigh in on it.
So do we have any comment from the public?
Nobody signed up on the sheet for public comments. Anyone in the audience? Anyone online wishing to make a public comment regarding the changes to the resource management plan? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're wishing to speak to this. Not seeing anybody unmute themselves, commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the approval of the management plan amendments that were presented by our public langer.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay? We are now ending the public hearing.
Do we need to
Motion
make,
carries 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
we don't take action on that today, right?
We do. I think you can take action on that day, and there is a draft resolution which would show basically
Yeah, I saw that.
approval for that. So I don't know what your procedure is, but
Can we do
it's
that
here
tonight?
if you want to do that
We
today.
would have to have it as an actual
Action item.
resolution listed on our agenda, and we don't have that.
Can we have that at our next meeting?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, Nick.
Are you okay with that timeline on that, Nick? For
When I talked to Anne Marie, I was under the understanding, and maybe yourself, that this could be done in the same meeting.
no, we'd
So
have
I
to
didn't
have
know.
it- we would have to have it listed as
Okay.
similar to
Action
item number
item.
11.
Is it time sensitive with the state?
Not that time sensitive. I think if we could do it at the next commission meeting, that would
Yeah,
meet
now
their
that we've had the
deadlines.
public hearing, it kind of completes that so that we can
Yeah.
formalize everything on there and advertise it as an actual resolution ready to approve.
Okay. So next commission
Yeah.
meeting. All right.
Make a motion, we go into public hearing to amend and approve the additional budget appropriation requests for mid-year adjustments.
Motion by Mr. Adams to
I'll second it.
go to public hearing. Second by Mr. Maryboy. Any question? There be none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. 0. 3 in favor, 0 opposed, motion carries. We're in public hearing on a resolution pursuant to section 173526 UCA. Any
We ready? Okay.
Mr. Lyman?
Before I go too far, I'd like to thank James and Mac for helping with this budget. There were a lot of moving parts. The first budget that you're looking at in the light blue is the operating budget, or Fund 10, which largely has most of the expenses related to all of the employees and some of the activities. And we began the process by looking at our revenues, our general fund, our property tax. As you can see, property tax declined by $94,000 for this year, and so that made it challenging, even though many residents have seen some increases in their valuation and even in their taxes. We also, if you look a little bit farther down, we've had a lot more revenue come in through our business licenses, so that was nice. Added $17,000 to the revenue. The PILT, federal payment in lieu of tax, came in at $1.724 million, so that added $124,000 to the county revenue stream. And also other state grants went up about $14,000. Emergency services increased by $45,000. SSBG also increased by $36,000. The state mineral lease PILT had been budgeted at $240,000, but we ended up zeroing that out and putting it as a decrease of revenue. The liquor fund allotment jumped.
Just a minute, Mike,
Yes.
I'm not understanding why we're zeroing that out.
So
Do we not get any state mineral lease bill?
we do, in essence. We've always in the past received this, and then we allocate the recreation funds from this and then send the residual to the school district.
Okay.
Now the state is sending it directly to the school district, and we just have the school district cut our recreation checks from that. And so we're still getting it, in essence, through the agreement that we have with the partnership with the school district, that we would keep it in that recreation account. And so we've just been a pass through on these funds. The last 2 years, the state's been sending it directly to the school district. And so it's really just an offset. We had this below in our accounts where we would transfer this fund out anyways. And so it's just a zero out of the fund, not a lack of revenue.
Okay.
Thank you, Mac. Also had some other SRS, secure schools revenue that came in a little bit. The Revitalization Fund declined by $35,000. But we also, for the state inmate reimbursement, we recorded $90,000 and it hadn't been on the budget, so that was an increase. Then we had some ARPA transfers, which these are accounting, basically accounting recognition that went on here, and increased it by $283,000 for the 2022 budget, and the beginning fund balance to be appropriated declined by $6,700. I believe that is money that was created by one of the enterprise funds, and so it needed to be appropriated back. And on the second, or down at the bottom, we begin all of our expense changes that were recorded.
So, just 1 second.
Yes.
So on the total general fund revenue, it looks like we had budgeted for $8,554,000, and our actuality is about $480,000 more.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. I'm glad you recognize that. So if you think of this spreadsheet kind of as our working spreadsheet where it's our pluses and minuses in our operations. And so this is kind of going to ebb and flow. And so as you receive the revenue coming in, our total intergovernment revenue does not meet the needs and expenses of the county.
Yeah.
And so you see the change in ARPA funds from 177,000. We've now bumped that up to 461,000. That's how much we were short to making our budget balance this year. So we've taken, instead of 177, we've upped it up to $461,810 to make ends meet. So it's kind of a negative number. Had we not had those ARPA funds,
Right.
we would be $461,000 in the hole. And that's even taking in light, and we wanted to show that beginning fund balance because last year we were able, with our revenue and our expenses, at the end of the day, still have $351,000 sitting there at the end of the year. But we've brought that forward and placed that in our budget, our operation budget this year. But even with that, there's still $461,000 that we were lacking in our budget. And so, as we went through and you try to make ends meet, well, we've been able to apply some of the ARPA funds to making those funds meet. But in 2 years from now, we are not going to have those ARPA funds sitting there to make our ends meet.
Then we drop down into our expenses. Some of our expenses increased based on some of the issues that we faced in information technology. We needed to get some additional software that will help as far as any breaches of our firewalls or anything like that, that we can work through that.
Do you want me to explain some of those, Lyman? I can go through those on. So under the recorder's office, so these are the department adjustments that we've had to make. Under the recorder's expenses, that's just an offset within their operation account. So it's just moving money within their operations. We haven't increased anything for the recorder's office. In IT, last commission meeting, the commissioners made a motion asking me to look for additional employees. With a $461,000 negative, to add another IT employee would be pretty difficult, but you can use ARPA funds for infrastructure cost, which I would determine IT, servers, networking being an infrastructure cost. So I placed $10,000 in the IT maintenance cost budget to reach out to other consultants, similar to how we've done in the past with Ricky, where we've hired him in to, when we get overloaded, overburdened, we have somebody else to call. There's several different companies that we can outsource some IT functions to. So I've added that $10,000 in maintenance costs. At the end of the year with CARES Act, we've had subscriptions out there. For example, our Municode that we're streaming off of now is one of them. Our agenda management system, Zoom, all of those additional features. Google is also in here. Our Google account we have to pay for in November. So that $27,800 is an increase to IT to account for Google and Municode software costs. There's additional costs that aren't in here that don't come until next year, and we'll hold off until the end of the year budget adjustments to make those in next year's budget. In the attorneys, so under law, the miscellaneous services, there's $15,000 of an increase in there. That was due to the lawsuit that we just went through. The attorneys came back and said that that's all that they would charge is that $15,000. That still isn't finalized yet. The judge hasn't written his final order. So if he calls back for additional hearings, that may increase, but that $15,000 literally is just to cover the attorney fees from that lawsuit. Under the elections, similar thing. They've moved funds around on there. It's zero, but they've just moved operation costs in there. Under the jail, there was a missing line item in here, and these were now brought to light as we transferred dispatch up north. These had to be brought forward into the jail system, which is those costs that were originally in the budget that was approved, but were shadowed out in the budget when we printed everything. So we brought those back to light so everybody could see those, just being as transparent we can as we can with our budget. The dispatch, we originally had $50,000 in professional and technical, just holding. We don't know how much at the end of the day the dispatch is going to cost us from Utah Communications to transfer that system up to Price. However, we felt that budgeting 50,000 is too much. We've reduced that down to 30,000 just to be safe if they come back with additional costs. The emergency management systems, the contract is an offset of a contract award, a grant award that Tammy will have. These are all Tammy's items and adjustments that she's had to make regarding the senior citizens and the purchases there. These are all backed through funding from the state, but there are some costs that we will have to incur with the price of food. With gas going up, price of food has also gone up. And so you see those adjustments in congregate meals, home delivered meals on there. The special projects is getting down a little bit further. You've seen the reduction with the Navajo Trust Fund, the revitalization funds up above as revenue that we adjusted. We're not seeing a lot of movement on the Navajo Mountain Spring project, and that was what was budgeted at a high amount, that $20,000. They're still working through the entitlement process through the Navajo Nation for the road and to be able to get the springs through that road. And so the money just sits there in the Navajo revitalization funds, and we ask for reimbursements when Jones and DeMille bills us for that. Since it's really not moving anywhere, I didn't want to have a bunch of money just sitting on the books looking like it overinflated our revenue. So I've reduced that down to $2,000, anticipating that Jones and DeMille may come in with something. If that project all of a sudden kicks off, there's a couple $100,000 still sitting in that project. If all of a sudden everything comes to fruition, we begin that project, then at the end of the year, I'll catch that up. Under special projects, under the building improvements, $25,000. We have a HVAC unit here in this building that's gone out, that's no longer cooling the upstairs. This affects the planning departments and Nick's area down at the end of the hall that no longer has cooling in it. They have a portable cooler in there right now cooling them from the upstairs. So we've added that. They anticipate the cost to be around $22,000 to replace that unit up there. It's about, he'd mentioned it's a 40-year-old unit on that building, but I don't know if it is, but that's how much it would, $22,000 is what we anticipate the cost for that on there. So some minor changes to that. The transfers to other funds literally are just those, as we've had to adjust these transfers throughout, whether it's ARPA's funds. This is kind of the account that you see that. Like I mentioned, that $240,000 up above that we typically would transfer to the school district, that's zeroed out down here as no longer a transfer needed. So less on our transfers overall. You get down, we've had to make the adjustments from the salary increase. So you see all of the funds have a salary adjustment for the 3% increase that we did at the end of last year, and making up for that so that it's transparent on our books. Health department, they've seen a reduction in their tax revenue as well. So you see that $5,856 is the tax adjustment from theirs as they reduced. And then you have the salary adjustments for public health. Continuing down further, you have the EMS. This one's an interesting one. You see the contribution from other funds. General fund continues to have to bail them out. So we have transferred up above $385,169 of general funds money. And if you think about what we showed as how much we were missing, we're putting in just over $400,000 of ARPA funds into general fund to make that zero out, or just know that we're transferring out $385,169 into our EMS system to make that whole. There's also This $50,500. This is an audit. When you go through the audit and you have deficiencies in your budgeting practices, this is an audit finding. Last year we failed to decrease the EMS and tort liability deficit that is still existing. So there's behind here on our balance sheet, when you look at our final audit statement, there's $1 million that's still owed in ambulance services. That is a deficit spend where we took other funds in the past to shore up ambulance services. The last couple of years, we've been making them whole with the transfer from general fund, but in the past, they left it as a negative. We still have to contribute 5% of that deficit every year. So we've had to increase our budget, $50,500 to go directly towards that 5% deficit that remains on the book. At $1 million, 5% a year, it's going to take a long time to get us to balance that one out, but also tort liability is the same. And then you see the salary increases on top of that. In our capital fund, because at the end of the year we had less of a remaining dollar that was less there in those funds, mainly from our landfill fund and our general fund for the airplane, we reduced that amount that we contributed to the capital fund. So at the end of the day, instead of having $723,616 in capital funding, we will now only have $698,872. So it's just a difference of making up with those where we ended up for the beginning fund balance at the end of the year. As we get down into Fund 45, which is our library fund, well, let's see, this is still in our capital. Let me get down to our landfill libraries after that. So that was mislabeled. The in our landfill, you have the transfer of funds that I was talking about for our capital. Up above, we've decreased that amount and then also increased the salaries in there. And so it's just an offset on our books from beginning and ending entry to cover the salaries. In, let's see, this one here, this is the tort liability fund where I mentioned we also failed to allocate 5% of that remaining deficit balance. I believe that was over $300,000. And so we had to allocate $20,650 in tort liability fund, which is its own fund here at the county, which is Fund 63, to make that whole. And then you get down to the libraries, property tax revenue came in with a $19,443 deficit. And so you see that adjustment in their property tax revenue, but they also at the end of the year had a beginning fund balance. And so we were able to offset through that beginning fund balance. So you're looking at just $23,000 in adjustments there. And then they also had the increase for the salary. So if you look at your salary total expenditure compared to the revenue expenditure, those both balance out at $23,187,000. That is kind of an overall summary. I don't know if Lyman, if you had anything else in there. I did post this on here because I think there was some questions that we had from commissioners of like, truly, where are we at? Why? So last year at the end of the year, when we looked at our budget, we had actually brought in a revenue of $2.4 million, just over $2.4 million in general operations with our property tax. What we use this year for our budget is strictly what the tax commission is showing us as general operation revenue from our property tax revenue. So in all, where we reduced ours by $100,000, we actually anticipate that we will collect more than what we are actually showing here from the tax commission. This is just a tax commission total that's taking our tax rate by the values, but it's not showing actual collection, and that's really where our difference was last year, where we brought in the 2.4 million. This year we're only anticipating just over 2 million, so there's a loss of 400,000. We can still collect more. Our collection rate, you can kind of notice this up here, our 5-year average collection rate is around 91%. And if you think of some of the things that we've done here in the past where we haven't forgiven, like the Lisbon Valley on their taxes, they still are making payments on back taxes. So we actually collect more than what is anticipated from the tax commission. And so Lisbon Valley's been great about staying on top of their payments. And so with that, we are collecting more than we are anticipating collecting from the tax commission. So at the end of this year, when we bring in our budget in December, hopefully we will see some adjustments to that actual revenue collected. People that owe back taxes, things like that 10% that is missing, we continue to get that 10% throughout the year to make up for that 91% typical collection on there. And so we're hoping with that, if it comes in high, for our mid-year budget, we didn't want to anticipate or just hope in our budget. We wanted to try to true up our budget, act like it is real, and at the end of the year, we'll make the adjustments as necessary with our revenue, hoping that we actually get more, but it's not a guarantee. That $2,055,000 is a guarantee that we will get. So I wanted to show that there is growth in our taxes. That's important to recognize that we have received additional revenue from general operations as well as our sales tax revenue, but it's small. You also see that we're in our personal property tax that has gone down over the last couple of years. And so when you think of in general and you think of property tax and a strategy to collect more, I think it's important that you as commissioners keep in mind that the decisions that you make continue to affect our taxes, and our decisions that we make in here contribute to this overall picture of what we can collect in taxes. If businesses aren't coming to town, you're not going to see your centrally assessed increase. It just won't. Neither will the personal property that comes with businesses. So it's important when we make decisions, we're always kind of keeping in mind a 0.81%. So I think it's 0.81% change in centrally assessed is pretty scary. And you hear Commissioner Adams mention in the past that centrally assessed was it. We had so much centrally assessed in the past, and a lot of this is the revenues that's generated from the mining and the oil production. As we see that decline in the county, and some of our initiatives, have been anti-environment and anti-drilling, well, that affects our centrally assessed. And I had actually anticipated, just with the Trump era policies and even Biden era policies, as they open up more oil production, that would have been a high number, where it's less than 1% change in centrally assessed. That's scary. The tax commission, when they came and presented last year to us, they made a note of that centrally assessed here in San Juan County has been on the decline. And really what that does is shift the burden. If we're not collecting it in centrally assessed, then we've got to collect it in real property, and that's where it comes to the citizens. The real property tax goes up. That's the citizens that have to pay more of a tax out of their pockets rather than the companies that are doing business here, spending money and paying for that tax. And so just bear that in mind. Less than 1% change in centrally assessed for me is pretty spooky. We can't continue that trend. The tax commission, like I mentioned, they see that trend going negative for us here in this county. And so just as a note, we're able to make our budget balance on ARPA funds, but 2 years and continuing centrally assessed tax decline makes it hard, make ends meet with our county budget here. And so I know that's not a lot of good news for a mid-year budget, but it's more cautionary. Yesterday in our staff meeting, I mentioned to our staff as well, is just be frugal with your budgets. Don't Christmas spend, and we asked that same thing last year of our staff, and they did a good job to the tune where we were able to actually come out in the end with additional revenue rather than expenses on there. And so they did a good job, and hats off to them for those efforts. But any questions with our budget?
One thing that could help us quite a bit would be if we had some new businesses that wanted to come to the county. And I know there have been some that have tried to come into Spanish Valley that would create additional property taxes that would go into our general fund and possibly some a little further south. But if we allow opposition to guide what our decisions as commissioners are, we're missing some opportunity to create additional revenues when these businesses want to come into our county and set up shop and provide additional services. So just hope we'll keep that in mind moving forward.
Other than that, we can turn it to, if Lyman doesn't have anything else, we can turn it to the public for public comments.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
There was none signed up that I seen on our sign-up sheet. Anybody here in the audience want to speak to anything? If not, we can turn it online. Elaine, economic development. If economic development didn't have a word, I'd be surprised.
Well, I'm coming up here as a citizen too, to say that I think your decisions are, as Commissioner Adams indicated, critically important. And if we continue to stop growth and look the other way, we're in 2 years, where are we going to be? I think we need to have a real hard look at where the community is going. Several weeks ago, I gave a report on the sales tax leakage alone, which was $94 million that were missing San Juan County because of businesses that aren't here in the county. So I think that we have to work with the individual cities to talk to them about what the strategy is, but and what businesses can come in. We need to do everything that we can to secure more transient room tax. That's going to be the fastest way that we can bring in revenue at 4.25%. And right now, with the gas prices, with inflation, our transient room tax is looking, we're about $20,000 ahead for the year through March. And I can tell you the campgrounds are slow, the hotels are slow, and that's a trend we're seeing across Utah. It's not just here. So if the transient room tax goes down, because a lot of that goes into the general fund, and the sales tax diminishes, where are we going to be? And yes, Spanish Valley, northern Spanish Valley is really an area that you have to take some real serious consideration on as far as what allowable growth can we have that will help all of San Juan County. I think it's important to take that into consideration, and we have to look at not stopping businesses from coming in and opportunities to generate tax revenue. We're in a serious situation, and we can't wait and push it down the road. We have to address it now, and how are we going to do that? So, and unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have a major highway. We don't have rail. We don't have an airport, large airport to speak of. So we've got to find other ways that we can generate income, revenue coming in to San Juan County. So I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Adams. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Go ahead.
I'd like to also speak about that. I know the trend has been with this commission, the majority of this commission has been anti-business, anti-infrastructure, anti-development of natural resources, of oil and gas, and it's having severe consequences on the people here that have to pay property tax on their homes and their businesses. Is making it really tough. And I feel like that the outside influences from outside this county is what's causing it. It's causing it from the environmental groups that are funding elections and influencing the decisions being made, not just in the areas where those commissioners live and represent, but the part of the county that depends on this and has generated the revenue. This needs a stop. It needs it for our county. It needs it for the development in the country. So I'd like to see some changes in that direction that this commission has been doing.
Okay, anyone else wishing to make a public comment on her? Sure. Go ahead, Rick.
I've got a question from the assessor's office. So based upon our reports, the property values in the county went up $161 million with what we did with the commercial assessments, improving what we've done in our office. So I was under the presumption that if we had more income coming into the county, more value, that the county would be in a better situation with their funds. So what happened? So was it a matter of a truth and taxation meeting that we needed to do to raise things just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction? Or was it, I mean, what?
Utah Tax Commission on the rates and what they gave us.
Right, they lower the rates,
Yeah.
but the county needed, I mean.
We do need more, absolutely.
So
And that's the hard
we're-
part with the pie.
We're getting our assessments up
Yes, and
to
you
a
are,
correct level.
and you did. There was a overall with the real property tax assessments, we went up 24% of valuation in the county. 24%. So that's that's a pretty good toke. But our collection and the amount that we can collect at the county still was lower as according to our tax rate. Our tax rate, there was a change of tax rate that went down 11%, 11.99%. We would have to.
Could the county have done a truth and taxation?
We could have an increased taxes. Yes. But that's a,
My value on my own house went up 30,000,
yeah.
but my taxes went down $30. So I'm going like, well, I'd donate $30 to the county.
Yeah.
You know,
So we would have had to start that process back in November, I believe, is when you start to have to declare truth and taxation and go through that process, which
just learn
is still on the table.
information. So
Value went up. You're doing an awesome job, and 24%. That's huge. That's huge. But you do have to go through that truth and taxation process to get more. Yes. Yep.
Make a motion, we come out of public hearing. And go back into our regular meeting.
Motion made to exit public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further question? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chair. Ooh.
Opposed? 0. Motion carried, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Back in,
So with that, we need a resolution to adopt those changes. Or a motion to adopt the resolution.
Make a motion, we adopt the resolution that we just had a public hearing on.
motions made to adopt the resolution pursuant to section 173626 UCA. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
all right, thank you. Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Number 12.
Thank you, Commissioners. I am here to recommend making or consideration and approval and making a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding. San Juan County Economic Development and Visitor Services, as the director, I'm requesting approval for San Juan County to work with Grand County Active Trails and Transportation to create the Mud Springs Trail System in northern San Juan County. This project would include support from the BLM once approved by the San Juan County Commission. The BLM would conduct the NEPA process and would commit to the costs. The Mud Springs Trail is located in northern San Juan County, and if the Commission approves the creation of the trail, Grand County Active Trails and Transportation will present this project for approval to the Grand County Commission. Creating the Mud Springs Trail System will benefit the residents of northern San Juan County, Spanish Valley, and definitely Grand County. This trail will provide close access to a trail system that can accommodate different mountain biking levels of experience, especially for residents, but also, more importantly, for the Utah High School Cycling League. It will provide another location for these students in grades 9 to 12 to utilize. Volunteers, I've been assured volunteers will be used to help build the trails, and the Interscholastic Cycling Association, known as NICA, will also provide free trail design for the cost. The trailhead will be established at one main entrance on the eastern side of the highway that would lead into a shared trailhead and parking. There will be kiosks with wayfinding and educational signage with content tailored to the different groups that would be utilizing this trail system. Any environmental impact will be offset with trash removal and other restoration projects to be determined. The BLM will also determine the inclusion of a bathroom design and construction costs, camping, destinations for mixed use, dispersed, or the BLM will evaluate potential campground development. The creation of the Mud Springs Trail System will be an asset to San Juan County and will be the first stage of a more significant trail development. In 2019, Grand County approved the interlocal agreement with San Juan County to coordinate on trails that overlap in both jurisdictions. So we've got a couple of zones, 1 and 2. There's actually 4, but the first part would be phase 1 and 2 with trailhead parking for a rough estimate of 15 to 20 miles of creation of these trails for different levels of experience. And then we would go into potentially zone 3 and 4 that could also evolve into a connector trail into the Manti-LaSalle South Mountain Trail and possibly extend into loops in that area. So totally rough estimate for all the 25 miles or more is $500,000. We would, of course, seek grant funding from sources as the Outdoor Recreation Grant, Non-Motorized RTP Grant, and additional state and federal grant applications will be submitted to cover most of the costs. And additionally, access to this trail will encourage visitors using San Juan County lodging properties to stay longer, thus contributing to more TRT and sales tax collections. It'll also take some pressure, and I can speak to that, off of Grand County in the Spanish Valley area by residents not having to travel through the city of Moab, but can then access the Mud Springs Trail. So I've met with Active Trails and Transportation from Grand County, the BLM, and I feel that this project will be beneficial to San Juan County and will be, again, the first of other trail systems that we would be able to develop here in our area.
Okay, a motion,
I make a motion, we approve the request.
any second?
Second.
Question? None? All those in favor say aye.
I will say, I think Elaine's done a lot of really hard work on this and trying to coordinate with Grand County, and appreciate her efforts.
Thank you.
Aye also. Opposed, nay? 3 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elaine. All right.
Next,
We'll buzz through these really fast. We've got a bunch of people waiting outside. So item 13, consideration and approval of a principal forgiveness agreement for the Lasalle feasibility study for $60,000 from the Drinking Water Board State Revolving Fund, the State of Utah DEQ. I had applied for, so earlier in the year, you had approved the contract for a feasibility study for Lasalle. That contract came in at $60,000 to do that study. I'd applied for the state of Utah for a grant funding for that feasibility study, and we were awarded that $60,000 for that. This is the document to get that transfer of funds to us so that we can pay our contracted vendor for that project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
thank you. Any question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay? 0. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the next one is
14,
consideration and approval of contract agreement with Bloomquist Health Solutions for high engagement mental health solutions. This is a tricky one. This is one of those that Commissioner Adams just loves, that the state gives us an opportunity to pay for something. But we may be able to get some funds back. But in last year's legislative session, they approved amendments to House Bill 23, which is the first responder mental health service amendments, which requires the county to provide mental health evaluations and assistance, help for our first responders. That includes employees, spouses, children, even individuals that are retired in the past that may have mental health as first responders. This includes first responders as defined as law enforcement, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, dispatch, correctional officers, search and rescue, wildland fighters. So we had reached out to Bloomquist and Hell and received a response to our proposal back. They can provide these services for us at a cost of $4.36 per employee, in addition to $140 per first responder wellness visit. So guaranteed we have to pay them $4.36 per employee. If they actually solicit their services, then it's $140 thereafter for that wellness visit. Last year we contracted with a company to do this, a 3-year agreement with Previdence Corporation for $6,822 a year for this type of services for just the sheriff's office, which included corrections, search and rescue as well. So you can kind of see that Bloomquist and Hale is a little bit less expensive than for all of our employees than what the sheriff is doing. Once the sheriff started working with this contract, Previdence kind of changed some issues. They sold out, some of the portions sold out to a nonprofit organization. It's kind of been messed up. The sheriff had mentioned that he'd rather just get out of that contract and go with Bloomquist Hale. And then that would be covered under that $10,150. There wasn't a budget adjustment in this year's budget. We were supposed to have this in place in July, but where we're making our budget adjustments now, they would come with our newest budget adjustments on there. But there is also a fiscal note of $5 million that the state put to this. We would have to apply for a grant to cover those services, in which we will do so with that. But this is one of those gifts. And instead of applying it just to first responders, I felt that a lot of our employees throughout the county could be considered first responders. They may not be a law enforcement official first responder, but during COVID and all of that, they were first responders. And so we felt that, just doing it for all of the county employees in total, where it was $10,000, we felt that it was best just to offer it for public health employees just as much as anybody else. That makes sense.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the next one is the Board of Equalization. Need a motion to enter into Board of Equalization to consider an approval of corrected property value adjustments up until the date of August 2nd.
Motion.
Motion by Kenneth to enter Board of Equalization. Any second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. We're now on Board of Equalization.
So commissioners and public that's listening to this, this is the time of year. So we close our tax roll at the end of May. And from now till the tax notices go out, we have to come to the commissioners to change anything on the tax roll. And that's with Board of Equalization. And if you'll notice, we have quite a few changes, and what happened was our computer glitched, and we have no idea what happened with the computer glitch. So if you'll notice that first one, number 1 on your agenda there, the value went from $10,000 a lot to $1,000. So what we want to do is we're correcting the values back to 2021, and it was the same value in 2020. So that was a computer error on number 1. And some of those are quite substantial. So from 65,000 to 2,500, we don't know what happened, but it needs to be corrected. And then on number 2, Utah Naval Health Systems. And if you have any questions on these, we can take some, we've got people waiting, but we can take a little time. Utah Naval Health Systems applied for their exemption under a charitable exemption and was approved. So their clinics and what Utah Naval Health System does has been exempt from property taxes, which is probably close to about $3,500,000. Number 3 was the Navajo tribe at Westwater subdivision. Again, we have no idea what happened, but the computer made some changes and they were not correct. So that's a correction at Westwater for the Navajo tribe, which actually brings their property values down to last year's value, $6,000 per lot, and then $1,000 per vacant acre. We had on page number 3, Robert Morris Foundation of Monticello. They changed a home to a girls' dormitory, which falls under the exemption of educational. So the value would change from $10,125 to nothing, to zero. Do we need to go through every one of these, or what do we want to do, commissioners?
I thought we did these in September, but the reason we're doing them now is because of the computer error.
Well, what we found out last week is our state representative with the tax commission told myself that we can come before you commissioners under the Board of Equalization meeting and change these from now going forward, because these are just assessor corrections. These are not contested in a contestment where we need a judge, which we will do at the end of August. And these are just corrections made by the assessor's office that we found were wrong
I don't think
and
we
need to be
have to go
corrected.
through all of them.
I mean, I like number 8 myself. If you look at number 8,
Lyman's?
Lyman Duncan's house was listed as vacant property. For how many years? I don't even have an idea. But Lyman said, that's not correct. My house sits on the property. So for all these years, Lyman Duncan was not receiving the 45% reduction on his land value. So he was overpaying by about $300 a year. So thank you, Lyman, for that.
Thank you for
overpayment.
that.
And then the number 10 and number 11, number 12, I misread a building permit on those 3. And I put the value of the house on our tax records when there was no house built. There was still a building permit, but they hadn't started the building as of January 1st. So, of course, we need to take those 3 off. And then the last, quite a few, and commissioners, you may have some questions on some of these, but we went through, and this starts on page 5. We looked at the Pack Creek fire people that were actually burned. They had property burned, their houses were gone, or their land was burned up. And we said, instead of going to what we wanted to do this year, let's change those back to last year's values for those people, because their land is still burned. And so that's probably about 20 properties there in Pack Creek. So we thought that was fair from the assessor's point of view. So we will be back again. We have found a lot of computer errors that we have no idea. This was as many as we could put together to get to here today. So we want to keep going and make these corrections for the citizens and make sure things are correct and right.
Make a motion, we come out of Board of Equalization.
Do you need these approved on there?
Yes.
Okay, we'd have to do that before you come out of the board.
Yes, I do.
You have to do it in
I
the board
thought
of
we had
equalization.
to do it out.
Second.
Second by Kenneth, motion made by Mr. Adams.
I'm gonna change my
Jackson.
motion. I want to make a motion that we approve the changes as presented.
Motion.
And then come out of Board of Equalization. I don't know if I can do that in one motion.
Oh, yeah. You
Is that legal to?
Hey, she's the Brett. Yeah, you can tell
Well,
twofold. As long as you
As far
approve
as I
it.
understand,
It's the body.
there's a motion made and amended motion, which is to approve the changes presented. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question before I second.
Go ahead.
Presenter, this particular item that you brought before us, so everything was good until the computer glitch. There's no change way before the glitch, and there's no change now, right?
No, this was something happened in our assessor program. This did not have anything to do with the county's computer problems. A couple weeks ago, a month ago, we started noticing these. So after we close a tax roll, we have to go to a BOE to make any changes, Board of Equalization meeting. And we started noticing these problems clear back in June. And we thought we had to wait till September or after August to bring these to the commissioners. And we found out we did not have to wait. We could bring these sooner so we can get our job done quicker. So what happens with this is if this is approved, we will go back this afternoon and tomorrow and make all these changes. And then Lyman with the county clerk can send out to all these parties an updated tax notice for them to review. And if they don't like it, they can come again to us or to the Board of Equalization and say, we don't approve, we don't like what we see. So it starts a
Okay.
process.
Okay, well, with that explanation, I will second the motion.
Okay. So, any further question? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Aye also. Opposed, nay? There being none, the motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Number 16.
We'll let everybody in.
17.
It's tricky, Henry.
There you hit the room.
We just.
I got a
Yeah.
vote.
There will be a few
We're having
people.
elections, general, primary election.
Today,
What
how long the polls stay open?
I don't know. Hopefully, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, it should be later tonight. Yeah. Examination.
So the primary results will be available tomorrow?
Yeah, the president, 2 candidates, and also Council Del.
Okay, so the council delegates too. Because I know Charlene has some people running against her as well as Herman. So both of them have.
And the president has 15 or 16 people running for that one.
12.
12.
12 altogether.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Flat tire or what?
That's cool. Do you have everybody here that's going to be here? Awesome. Well, awesome, you guys. Thanks for coming. So, commissioners, on our agenda, let me pull our agenda back out. So, item number 16 was recognition of Gary Sotomayer for 35 years of service of the San Juan County Public Health Board. I'll turn it to Grant to kind of just give us a summary. But I seen Gary walk in. He's sitting in the middle of the crowd there.
Well, as a newcomer to the county, one honor I've had is to be able to serve, though it's been a short time, to serve with Gary Sotomayer as a member of our Board of Health. And though my time with him has been very short, I've been really grateful to hear just a little bit about his long-term service to our county, and actually not just our county. When we were part of Southeast Health Department, he was a member of the board as well, so representing us in many ways for a long period of time. Invited Mayor Bailey Hedgeland to join us as well, since Gary has been representing more recently the Monticello area. And so we have kind of a series of recognitions here we'd like to do. Also acknowledge Gary Sotomayer's wife and children and in-laws that have come as well. Thanks so much for being here to be a part of this special time. And really, it speaks to how public health is done. We have lay people from the community coming together to discuss what are health priorities. How do we come together as a community and really promote health and have better lives for everyone? So thanks so much, Gary, for what you've done for our community. Let's start with,
We have a certificate of appreciation for you, so we'd just like to present that to you, Gary. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, then on behalf of the counties, we've got a 35 years of service plaque. Commissioner Adams will read what's on there.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
So when I ran for commissioner back in 2004, one of the responsibilities that I had was to serve on the Southeastern Utah Health District. And when I got on that board, I was glad to see a good old friend of mine, Gary Sotomayer. Gary used to work in the elementary school that I was teaching at, and we had some good experiences in our teaching career, but even later on in our, I guess Gary's in a political career, but mine has kind of been a political career. But we used to have to drive to Price or Green River to these meetings. Was it once a month, Gary?
Well, every other.
Every other month. And Gary was, I don't know if Gary ever missed a meeting in the whole time that he served in that organization. And I assume that has carried on here with San Juan County. And it was a pretty contentious breakup between Southeastern Utah Health District and the county forming their own, but didn't scare Gary. He stuck with us through thick and thin, and I just don't know of anybody else that has really given 35 years of service without getting paid. Gary always showed up for the dinner after the meeting, and I think he considered that his pay was the dinner at the Tamarisk restaurant in Green River or wherever else we ate. But Gary's, he's given his heart and soul to public health. He's been a great advocate and a great board member. And so I'll just read what our plaque says. It says, Gary Sotomayer, with deep appreciation of your relentless dedication and outstanding talents, thank you for all you have done for San Juan County.
Awesome.
You don't have to get up.
Do you want to get a picture of him standing up?
Stand up, Gary.
We can get him pictures.
And here's
Go from this side then.
One, two, three.
Awesome. Mary, you better get in there.
Grab one too with him as well. We'll shake hands again.
You may as well.
Rebecca, yeah, you have the pictures now.
One, two, three.
Awesome. Thank you.
Grant or Rebecca, can I get a picture with Cindy and Murray
The family.
and Ronnie Neves? No.
Adopted? You never know. Everyone's related.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Now we have a resolution.
So the next one is a resolution of San Juan County Board of Commissioners expressing our continued recognition and appreciation for our public health employees and their efforts throughout this pandemic. So that's the title of the resolution. If you want me to read it, I can try.
Yeah.
All right. So here it goes. Maybe might have to have somebody else come up and read this one. Okay. Or Commissioner Adams can read it. So since the year 2020, San Juan County has experienced the effects of COVID-19 and has been responding to the needs of our public throughout the county, state, and traveling tourists that would pop in. And whereas during this pandemic, our public health department experienced a change in its public health officer, and whereas employees within the public health department stepped up and faced the challenges caused by a never before experienced pandemic. They came up with solutions with how to administer vaccinations to the mass public, how to track those vaccinations, and how to respond to the overall public needs, and how to make sure our citizens were informed and safe. And whereas during this time, we witnessed great leadership from our employees who reached out to perform duties and services that were beyond their typical daily workloads. And whereas these employees have tirelessly met the needs of responding to this pandemic in addition to continuing to provide all public health services on a daily basis. And whereas in total, our public health department employees have gone above and beyond, taking on temporary roles and additional assignments. The leadership team has been responsive, solution-oriented, and stepped up to meet expectations placed on them by the public and other government agencies, and they have done it with success. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Board of San Juan County Commissioners publicly recognize and express our appreciation to our public health department employees, our division directors, supervisors, and volunteers for their tireless service to our county and state, for their valiant efforts to serve our public, and for rising to meet the needs presented to us during this pandemic. We thank you for stepping outside of your typically daily tasks, challenging job assignments, and giving it your all, passed, adopted, and approved by the Board of San Juan County Commissioners this second day of August 2020 by the following vote.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution honoring our public health department. And I applaud you.
Is there a second to the motion? I will go ahead and second the motion. And And, all those in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Kiddush, still on?
He's still on there.
How do you vote, Mr. Maryboy?
Yes, yes. Was on mute.
Sounds like he's chewing.
He said yes. didn't he?
Opposed? Nay? 3 in favor? 0 opposed. Motion carries. There you go. Now you can.
Okay, now we Thank you, commissioners, for that. The final item on your agenda is commission reports.
Go ahead.
I'm not gonna report anything today. These people wanna eat.
Yeah. Let's go eat.
I don't either.
You're welcome
Motion
to
to
join
adjourn.
us, Mr. Maryboy. Smells good. Down the
Smells
hall.
real good.
I'll make a
Motion to
motion, we adjourn
adjourn.
the commission meeting.
Motion made to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maryboy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Aye also. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.